Yeah, the Honourable Leader of the Second Opposition.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we recently marked the 4-year anniversary of the Premier's article in a community newspaper. A plan is in the works. It's an evergreen article, Madam Speaker, because even today it's hard to know what this government's plan is. There's a lot of motion, but not much direction. And it's going to take the next government to some time to dig their way out of the pit of despair this Premier has created. What we see as being the backbone of our province, health, infrastructure, and education, this Premier sees as costs to be cut. Manitobans are worried because they don't know when these cuts will end. And the Premier himself seems to be confused as he's endlessly reversed himself on issue after issue. He promised municipalities a fair say, but refuses to meet with them, and apparently will only address issues once they've gone to the media. Can the Premier tell the House why he would prefer to fight with municipalities and keep his promise to give them a fair say?
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Relations.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll answer the end of that question, I think, because I think that was the question the answer is looking for is simply this. Our government has expanded fair say, Madam Speaker, to all 137 municipalities, including the City of Winnipeg, Madam Speaker. We continue to have open and honest dialogue with all our municipalities, Madam Speaker, as we continue to grow this great province we live in.
Wow.
The Honourable Leader of the Second Opposition on a supplementary question. Order.
The Premier is wonderfully creative, Madam Speaker, as are his ministers, especially when it comes to coming up with statistics that are divorced from reality. He and his Finance Minister have repeatedly claimed the City of Winnipeg receives the most generous funding of any municipality. But was very quickly proven wrong in the article I table now, which showed that per capita dollars are declining, capital funding is declining, and that Winnipeg is at the bottom of the pack with Regina, Calgary, Edmonton, Montreal, all receiving more funding. Recently, the Minister and backbenchers have taken to insulting the City of Winnipeg and its staff, councillors and mayor and the media on Twitter and in publicly released letters, all while there's a bill about municipal harassment and bullying before the House. Instead of unleashing backbenchers on social media, will the Premier stop underfunding and bullying our municipalities, who, unlike this government, actually want to continue having services for Manitobans and give them the fair say they promised?
Order. The Honourable Minister of Municipal Relations.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and certainly I'll inform the House, in particular the member from St. Boniface, that approximately 2.5 weeks ago, Madam Speaker, we supported 136 municipalities with more unconditional funding, Madam Speaker, to the tune of $10 million for all the municipalities outside the City of Winnipeg, Madam Speaker. I can tell you that that money is unconditional, and those communities can now spend that money on where they feel it can be best invested in their communities, Madam Speaker. And regarding the City of Winnipeg, Madam Speaker, we are pleased to now announce again, and the members should know this, a 35% increase in capital funding this year alone, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Second Opposition on a final supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Premier has been talking a lot about calling an election this summer. He's been monologuing it, but he hasn't been able to keep his story straight. And it's ironic or it's strange that he would want to call an election having leading up to it by picking fights with just about everyone, Madam Speaker. The City of Winnipeg has a $40 million hole in its budget thanks to this government tearing up its agreements. And this is a habit, Madam Speaker. This government has broken promises on most of their platform, agreements with municipalities, Hydro and the MMF, the federal government, the Kelvin Gym, community organizations, childcare, seniors, frontline service providers, just to name a few.
Order.
The Minister of Municipal Relations went so far last week as to try to take credit for $40 million in gas tax funding from the federal government. Why is this government following in the footsteps of the NDP, taking credit for others' work while blaming others for their own mistakes?
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Relations.
Well, thank you again, Madam Speaker, and certainly we're pleased to last week again talk to the City of Winnipeg, as we do on a weekly basis with our senior staff. And Madam Speaker, we are working together to ensure that Winnipeggers
continue to get the very generous support. Matter of fact, Madam Speaker, the most generous in any other jurisdiction across Canada. Madam Speaker, we, again, I mentioned a 35% increase in capital infrastructure, Madam Speaker. We also, too, as well, provided almost $49 million in new road construction this year alone, Madam Speaker. We're proud of the investments we're making in the City of Winnipeg. We're certainly wanting to move on, and I know that the City of Winnipeg as well, for the betterment of Winnipeggers, Madam Speaker.
Hear, hear.